there is a huge lot of focus here on currency markets, Nick, but we'll start with what's happening, I guess, in the Aussie dollar. And that's after, I guess, we've had quite a lot of data out on jobs and inflation.
Yeah, we have. So Aussies, we've had a bit of moving currencies this week, which is kind of different to what we've seen elsewhere. Everyone's waiting for Jackson Hole, but good break to the downside in Aussie. It took out some of the support we've seen for a few weeks, to be honest with you. And I think there's just been a recalibration, a little bit on what we're expecting from the RBA, and then you can see that's on the daily chart. So it's a nice breakdown. It needs to go further. If it breaks through that 64 cents level, then it really does open the way for a little bit of a move, and that can only probably come from Mr. Powell tomorrow at some point. But Aussie looking a little bit vulnerable, I'd say.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, as we say, it's all about what's happening in Jackson Hole, but you do have a little bit of strength coming through in the yen. Yeah,
we do. So there's been some good yen strength coming through. I think what we're still looking at, and Japanese banks are highly focused on what we're going to get from the Bank of Japan. Inflation's still very much on their front foot, I suppose. And yen strength has been, it's been buy on dips for the yen, as you can see. Every time dollar yen's pipped up around 148, it's come back down again, and we're sitting sort of comfortably around 147.40 at the moment. It does open the way either side for moves off of what Jerome Powell tells us tomorrow.
So the Canadian dollar, that's at about a 3-month low, I believe. So what is the outlook there when we hear from Jackson Powell for the loonie?
Well, I think that we're obviously going to be looking at that dollar side of the equation.
Yeah.
CPI came out a little bit worse than expected in Canada earlier in the week, and that's what got that nice break. So some of the commodity currencies, we saw Aussie break lower, and we've seen CAD break lower over the course of this week. And I'm wondering, from a currency perspective, we're wondering if this is a bit of covering in front of what we hear from Powell later on, and a little bit of recalibration in the market, which has pretty much been selling dollars for the last few months. So a nice sort of move there for the CAD. We're going to keep an eye on what's going on. And once again, similar situation to the Aussie on the technicals. It's broken through the trend line resistance for CAD, but it's sitting just near that recent high as well. So it will take that move from Powell on the dollar side of things to move it, but they could be both really big movers in the next few sessions.
Now, I note that the pound has slid against the euro, but let's just have a look at the euro versus the US dollar as well. What's happening there?
Yeah, euro's in a very similar situation to what we've seen. It's not at extremes, it's back in the middle of ranges. And there you can see it now. But once again, unfortunately, we're looking at, probably with euro, we're looking at the geopolitical side of things, as with the pound as well. With the start of the week, we were looking at the Ukraine very, very hard. If we see that breaking down a little bit, you've got to think there's going to be some pressure on euro. And once again, we're going to be going back to Jerome Powell and what the Fed's going to be doing. I think the risk pretty much for the dollar is that we see him come out more hawkish than the market's got priced in at the moment, and certainly that the White House wants him to come in with. And that could see the euro push down to that downside support that comes in around about 114.70 at the moment.
All right, and let's talk about the pound then, because hot UK inflation, 3.8%.
Yeah, I know, another little spike up there.
Yeah.
And I think this confirms what we saw from the MPC last time out. We were expecting a little bit more of a dovish leaning from them, and you get the feeling they knew that this number was going to come out. They really are in a rock and a hard place with high unemployment. But now that sticky inflation, and we know that especially the MPC, they'll probably lean towards that inflation side of things, which means we may not see as hard an easing cycle as we were perhaps pricing in. We could see a little bit move in sterling on the back of that.
All right, Nick, thank you as always.
Thank
Nick
you.
Twidale from ATFX. That does it for this edition of The Trade. Be sure to join us next time.